Chapter 6. The Tolerance Wall. The crash did not happen all at once. It was not a blue screen of death. It was a slow, creeping latency, the kind that suggests the processor is overheating. It was Tuesday, 12 days after the inception of Protocol Alpha. Arthur stood at the head of the conference room table. The air conditioning was broken, and the room was a stifle of recycled breath and body heat. Miller sat to his left, tapping a pen. Elena Rostova sat at the far end, looking cool and imperious in a navy blouse, her tablet ready to record his performance. This was the architecture review she had requested at the bar. The much bigger data set. It was Arthur's audition for the kind of consulting role that paid 3 times his current wage. Arthur felt fine. He had taken his morning dose of 300 milligrams at 7 a.m., bolstered by his usual double-shot espresso. It was now 11:30 a.m. According to his spreadsheet, plasma concentrations should still be well within the therapeutic window. He should be in the amber. As you can see from the schema, Arthur said, pointing to the projection screen, the redundancy in the legacy sequel creates a recursive loop. If we shard the database here. He paused. A sound. Whir. It was the cooling fan of the projector. A low, grinding mechanical whine. Usually, under the influence of the regimen, Arthur would acknowledge the sound as acoustic input, negligible priority, and discard it. But today, the sound didn't bounce off. It dug in. It felt like a serrated edge sawing against the back of his neck. Arthur blinked. He tried to refocus on the schema. Flicker. The fluorescent light above Elena's head buzzed and dimmed for a microsecond. The visual stutter sent a shockwave of nausea through Arthur's gut. System alert, his mind warned. Shield integrity failing. Arthur, Elena asked. Her voice wasn't smooth anymore. It was loud, sharp. You were talking about sharding the database. Arthur looked at her. For the last week, Elena had been a source of dopamine, a complex puzzle he was successfully solving. Now suddenly she was a threat. She was looking at him with expectation. She seized the cracks, Arthur thought. The pain in his leg, which had been a silent ghost for nearly 2 weeks, suddenly screamed. It wasn't a gradual return. It was an instant, violent depolarization of the L5-S1 nerve root. The burning line of static shot down his thigh and exploded in his heel. Arthur's hand spasmed. The laser pointer he was holding clattered onto the table. Clack. The sound was like a gunshot in the small room. Miller stopped tapping his pen. You okay, buddy? You look like you're sweating. Arthur touched his forehead. It was slick. The suburban speedball balance had tipped. The gabapentin was fading too fast, leaving the raw, jagged energy of the caffeine exposed. He wasn't wired but tired anymore. He was wired and terrified. Minor hypoglycemia, Arthur stammered. The smooth, syrup-thick voice of the cool Arthur was gone. The stutter was back. He checked his internal clock. 11:35 a.m. He wasn't due for his second dose until 4 p.m. That was 4 hours and 25 minutes away. He couldn't wait 4 hours. He couldn't wait 4 minutes. If he stayed in this room, the sensory overload would trigger a meltdown. He would curl up on the floor. He would lose the contract. He would lose Elena. Excuse me, Arthur said, grabbing his bag. Bio break. Urgent. He didn't wait for permission. He turned and walked out of the conference room, his right leg dragging slightly as the sciatica bit into his gait. The employee restroom was occupied. Arthur heard the flush of a toilet and the rustle of paper. He couldn't be seen taking pills. The illusion of Arthur Vane, The machine required total opacity. He shoved the door open and hurried to the handicap stall, locking it with a trembling hand. He sat on the toilet lid, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. The tile walls seemed to be vibrating. Analysis tolerance. The biological machine was adapting. The 600 milligrams daily regimen, which had felt like magic 10 days ago, was now merely a baseline. The receptors in his brain had down-regulated. They were demanding more GABA to achieve the same level of silence. Arthur ripped the messenger bag open. He found the orange bottle. He poured a yellow capsule into his palm. 300 milligrams. He looked at it. One pill would get him back to baseline. It would stop the shaking, but it wouldn't fix the presentation. It wouldn't give him the God mode confidence he needed to close the deal with Elena. He needed to be better than normal. He needed to be numb. Arthur poured a second capsule into his hand. 600 milligrams. Right now. On top of the 300 milligrams from the morning. That would bring his daily total to 900 milligrams, assuming he skipped the afternoon dose, which he knew he wouldn't. Input warning. Dosage exceeds protocol alpha parameters. Override, Arthur thought viciously. The protocol is failing. Adapt or die. He threw both pills into his mouth and swallowed them dry, his throat clicking audibly. He sat there, eyes closed, counting seconds. 1, 2, 3. Pharmacology was physics. It took time for the gelatin to dissolve, for the powder to enter the stomach lining, for the transporter proteins to carry the molecule across the blood-brain barrier. But the placebo effect was faster. Just knowing the chemical was inside him, dissolving, rushing to his rescue, calmed his heart rate. 5 minutes passed. The cotton returned. It started at the base of his skull. A heavy, warm pressure that pushed the anxiety down, down, down. The whir of the bathroom ventilation fan softened. The light stopped flickering. The pain in his leg receded, not to the next room, but to the next county. Arthur stood up. He checked his reflection in the mirror. His pupils were slightly dilated. He looked intense, but steady. The sweat on his forehead had cooled. Latency resolved, he whispered. He walked back into the conference room. Sorry, Arthur said, sliding into his chair. Blood sugar crash. Had a protein bar. Elena was watching him, her pen hovering over her notebook. We were discussing the shard architecture. Right? Arthur said. He didn't just resume the presentation. He demolished it. The 600 milligrams bolus hit him mid-sentence, and suddenly he wasn't just explaining code. He was conducting a symphony. He drew diagrams on the whiteboard with sweeping, confident strokes. He anticipated Elena's questions before she asked them. He made Miller laugh twice. When the meeting ended, Elena stood up and capped her pen. I'm impressed, Vane, she said. I'll send the contract over to Miller this afternoon. She walked past him, and this time, she didn't just brush his hand. She squeezed his shoulder. You're full of surprises, she murmured. Arthur smiled. It was a perfect plastic smile. 6:30 p.m. The high had worn off, replaced by a hollow, gnawing exhaustion. Arthur sat on his futon in the basement apartment. The blue light of the monitor illuminated his face. He had opened protocol_alpha.xlsx, but he wasn't typing. He was staring at the bottle on his desk. He poured the pills out onto the desk. He counted them. 1, 2, 3, 8. There were 8 yellow capsules left. Arthur did the math. It was simple arithmetic, the kind Miller hated but Arthur lived by. The prescription was for 30 pills. Take one daily. He had picked it up 12 days ago. If he had followed the doctor's orders, he should have 18 pills left. But he had been taking 600 milligrams, 2 pills, for most of the last week. And today, he had taken 900 milligrams, 3 pills. He had 8 pills remaining, at his new required dosage of 900 milligrams, because he knew deep down he could never go back to 600 milligrams after feeling the power of today. He consumed 3 pills a day. 8 divided by 3 equals 2.66. He had 2 days of supply left. He looked at the calendar. Dr. Kozlowski wouldn't authorize a refill for another 18 days. Arthur felt a cold prickle of sweat that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. He wasn't thinking about the pain in his leg. He wasn't thinking about the data entry. He was thinking about Monday morning. He was thinking about the noise returning. He was thinking about standing in front of Elena Rostova without his armor. Inefficiency, he thought. Poor supply chain management. He picked up the empty pill bottle and rotated it in the light. Refills, 0. He needed a patch. He needed a workaround. Arthur Vane picked up his phone. He didn't call the pharmacy. They would check the dates. They would say no. He opened the browser and typed in the search bar, "Urgent care clinics near me." He wasn't a drug addict, he told himself as he mapped out a clinic 3 neighborhoods over. He was just a project manager with a logistics problem.